Let's go Eagles. I don't know about you, but my heart is already racing because tonight is game day for our Philadelphia Eagles. We're going up against the New York Jets and the excitement couldn't be higher. It's that mix of butterflies in the stomach and pure adrenaline, knowing our team is ready to take flight on every snap. The preparation has been strong, the confidence is real, and all of us fans are counting down the minutes until kickoff. This is when the green and white passion runs even deeper, reminding us how much we live and breathe this team. But before I bring you today's updates and all the buzz from the Eagles locker room, make sure you hit that like button. Do it only if your heart beats faster when the Birds take the field. And if you're with me, drop a comment saying, "Go Birds. My heart bleeds green and white. Let's fly higher." Now, let's jump into today's news. Going into the preseason finale against the New York Jets, the Philadelphia Eagles are heading into one of the most intense weeks of roster evaluation. By Tuesday, every NFL team has to trim the roster from 90 players down to 53, and that means some tough decisions are on the horizon. The Eagles, loaded with depth at multiple positions, will have to navigate what can only be described as roster gymnastics, deciding who is a lock and who will have to fight for their spot in the final audition against New York. At quarterback, Jalen Hurts is firmly entrenched as QB1, and Tanner McKee has shown enough to be solid as QB2, despite recently missing some time with a finger issue. The real battle is at QB3, where Kyle McCord and Dorian Thompson-Robinson are competing. McCord has been ahead in the pecking order, taking QB2 snaps while McKee was sidelined. But the question remains whether the Eagles keep a third quarterback on the active roster or risk stashing one on the practice squad. Running back feels straightforward at the top. Saquon Barkley is the clear RB1, with rookie Will Shipley right behind him. But the interesting wrinkle is A.J. Dillon, who started the second preseason game and looked strong against Cincinnati. While many fans assume Dillon is safe, the numbers game might push him to the bubble if Philadelphia chooses to prioritize depth at another position. Because of his veteran status, the Eagles could cut him initially and then bring him back without him needing to clear waivers, but that's still a risky move for such a proven power back. Wide receiver is another spot filled with intrigue. A.J. Brown and DeVonta Smith are untouchable locks, and the front office made a clear statement by trading for John Mechie, ensuring his place on the roster. Jahan Dotson is safe as well. That leaves the bubble group Darius Cooper, Anaya Smith, and Johnny Wilson. Cooper has arguably looked like the Eagles' third-best wideout this summer, earning reps with the first-team offense and on special teams, which is often a deciding factor for roster spots. Wilson,
however, complicates matters. He was carted off during practice earlier in the week, which opens the door for Philadelphia to place him on the PUP list as a roster maneuver. The ripple effect of that could decide whether Smith or Cooper sticks. Terrace Marshall and Elijah Cooks, meanwhile, seem to be on the outside looking in. At tight end, Dallas Goedert and Grant Calcaterra are secure, with Kylan Grandson and E.J. Jenkins battling for a potential third spot. Jenkins appears to have the edge, and the offensive line, as usual, is a major focus. Jordan Mailata, Landon Dickerson, Cam Jurgens, Tyler Steen, and Lane Johnson are your starting five. Drew Kendall and Matt Pryor provide depth, with Pryor's versatility making him valuable. The rookies Cameron Williams and Miles Hinton are still in play, but their spots are far from guaranteed. Sean Derek Powell is the dark horse, a player the Eagles seem to be hiding during preseason action, signaling they believe in his upside but don't want too much tape available for other teams. Defensively, the interior line has Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Moro Ojomo, Ty Robinson, and Gabe Hall as locks. Hall's rise has been notable, an undrafted free agent from 2024 who now looks certain to stick thanks to his quickness and ability to penetrate gaps. On the edge, Nolan Smith, Josh Uche, Jalen Hunt, and Azeez Ojulari headline a strong group. Linebacker depth is better than Philadelphia has seen in years, with Zach Bond, Jihad Campbell, Jeremiah Trotter Jr., and Smail Mondon all locked in. The real question is who lines up next to Bond as a Week 1 starter against Dallas. The secondary has no shortage of drama. Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, and Jacorian Bennett are secure, with rookie McWilliams also flashing enough to earn his place. At safety, Reed Blankenship, Andrew Makuba, and Sidney Brown form a core trio. But the tension lies at cornerback, where Adoree Jackson, Khalil Ringo, and Eli Ricks are all sitting on the bubble. Ringo's quad injury and poor preseason showing against Cincinnati damaged his stock, while Jackson has received a lot of snaps but hasn't stood out. Ricks, long and physical, seems to have potential but hasn't locked it down yet. It's not unrealistic to see Philadelphia keeping all three, but none can feel entirely safe. Special teams also bring questions. Avery Williams was signed to return kicks and punts, but the Eagles already have multiple return options like Cooper DeJean and Anea Smith who can contribute at their primary positions as well. That could squeeze Williams out. Meanwhile, Ben Van Sumeren represents the possibility of Philadelphia reviving the fullback role, but it would mean sacrificing another spot on a crowded depth chart. What's clear is that Howie Roseman faces an unusually complex puzzle. The roster is stacked, and tough decisions are coming, not because of weakness but because of depth. Players like Patrick Johnson on defense, who continues to shine every preseason, might make the roster outright or become trade bait for a team in need of pass rushing help. Even for the Eagles, who have grown accustomed to bold moves, this feels like a particularly tricky balancing act. With cutdown day looming, what do you think, Eagles fans? Should Philadelphia take the safe route and stash veterans like A.J. Dillon and Adoree Jackson, or go bold and clear the way for younger talent like Darius Cooper and Eli Ricks? On defense, the most heated battle is happening along the edges and in the secondary. Patrick Johnson has been one of the most impressive preseason performers, consistently flashing with sacks, pressures, and even a near pick six against Cleveland. He's shown the kind of disruptive playmaking that's hard to ignore. But the challenge is that he sits in a crowded group that includes veterans and draft picks, and sometimes roster politics play as much of a role as on-field performance. The Eagles used a draft pick on Antoine Powell-Ryland, who hasn't had much impact during preseason. That leaves a real question. Do you keep the more proven preseason standout in Johnson, or stick with the drafted rookie who represents future potential? Byron Young, Jacob Sykes, and Abu Okaren will round out the mix, each bringing flashes but not the consistency of Johnson. This will be one of the most fascinating position calls Howie Roseman makes. The cornerback situation is equally compelling. Khalil Ringo entered camp with expectations of competing for a starting spot, but a quad injury and some tough reps against elite receivers have hurt his momentum. His preseason opener against Cincinnati raised real concerns, as he was repeatedly tested and beaten. Adoree Jackson, meanwhile, has been steady but uninspiring, playing significant snaps without making a strong case to lock down a starting role. Then there's Eli Ricks, whose size and length make him a prototypical outside corner. He's flashed enough to warrant serious consideration, but he hasn't put together a body of work that screams lock. The problem for Philadelphia is that none of these three is separated from the pack, which could push the team to consider external options, either through trades or by watching the waiver wire for a late cut from another cornerback-rich roster. At safety, Reed Blankenship, Andrew Mukuba, and Sidney Brown feel entrenched, but the battle for the fourth spot remains alive. Andre Sam has quietly outperformed Tristan McCullum, making plays in camp and games that have caught the attention of coaches.